So let's just have a great conversation.
All right, welcome to day 57 of CES and Views by Spectrum Reach. I'm Michael Guth, the SVP of Growth, here with Ying Wang.
Hi everyone, I'm Ying. I'm the GM of Xumo Advertising. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you here. So I don't even know what day it is, but there's been so many meetings, so many really great insights, so many great conversations. Sort of curious. So what are your takeaways, both from a Xumo perspective, but also just as a place to learn?
Yeah, I mean, one of the best parts of CES is just to get challenged. You know, you go into the year thinking it's going to be one way, and then you talk to your partners and realize, wow, there's so many other opportunities out there. So I loved talking kind of about the intersection of lots of new businesses, bringing social to CTV, you know, bringing performance to kind of mediums that traditionally are more upper funnel. I feel everything is kind of collapsing.
Yeah.
And then obviously there's tons of talk about AI, and it feels like, you know, we're sort of on that next verge of something big happening, like when programmatic was just a thing.
Yeah.
Like we're on the tipping point. So there's a lot of excitement and then so much buzz about CTV. Yeah. So I think we're both in a great place for that.
100% agree. I think congratulations for not saying AI, at least in the first 8 or 9 seconds, which I think is longer than it's taken for just about everybody. I think for me, from an AI standpoint, what's been really interesting, it's not just saying the word anymore. I think there's an understanding that it's not about technology, about what is it trying to accomplish, how it's going to simplify tasks, how it's going to simplify solutions. And I think the other thing that's really important that you talked about is performance and outcomes. And it's not enough to aggregate inventory. You need to use it in ways that make some sense. And so let's dive in. I was, as we were preparing, we were talking, it was been 2022 when we announced the joint venture with Comcast for Xumo, and I remember some of the first conversations we had about what was possible and what could sort of happen. I'm sort of curious from your perspective. It's been a crazy couple of years, and what have you seen?
So in terms of the growth perspective of the devices we launched together, I think that's all exceeded our expectations of how fast the adoption has been of the Xumo Streambox, and particularly in the Charter footprint. And so Xumo, I mean, we existed before the joint venture, but we were primarily kind of a direct-to-consumer app or just fast channels on other people's operating systems. The fact that we could bring our own content onto our own platform, enrich with our own data, and give it to our customers has been very powerful. And I think, you know, as you see, there's so many platforms out there. We want to make sure that we can not just be a source of audience in CTV, but engagement, data, and sort of be kind of that one-stop shop. And so I think that partnership has really helped us accelerate that story. I think about, it's really funny, like, you know, Roku started in the device business, got into content. We started on the content, we got into device business. So, you know, again, like this whole idea of like worlds kind of emerging. And I'm really excited about Xumo being kind of the future MVPD, right? We've all worked in this MVPD space for a long time. We've seen what works, what not. And Charter has really leaned in to evolving kind of what the future video business, MVPD business is going to look like.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I think you say future. It's been our present.
Yes.
You know, I think we were joking. We did a panel at Carbone, and every slide that we had that told our story included Xumo, because our theme this year has been Bet on the House, which obviously makes sense from a Las Vegas standpoint, but it also is the idea that everything that we do is predicated upon that household. And the pipes that we bring in and the services that we provide, and we recognize from a consumer standpoint, video was hard, and how to sort of identify the programming in a world that was sort of traditional set-top box linear to a streaming environment, and how do you find shows, how do you access inventory, how do you think about DTC, how do you think about traditional relationships with Spectrum Reach, and Xumo solved all of that for us. A lot of what we do from our residential side is talk about seamless entertainment, but from an advertiser standpoint, we're aggregating inventory, we're aggregating content in a way that allows you to focus, as you said, on performance.
Yeah, and even as consumers, I think we now don't really associate content with where it's distributed. We just want to know, we just want to watch, right? Like, you know, my kids were watching Harry Potter, and there's like 8 Harry Potters, and I have no idea where 1, 2, 3 versus 4, 5, 6 are. And I think what the Xumo OS platform does is it takes that guesswork out. You don't have to know that 1 through seasons 1 through 6 or episodes 1 through 6 are on Peacock, 5 is on Sci-Fi, 6 and especially in the sports world where the rights are so fragmented.
Yep.
We really take that complexity out. Someone was asking me, like, what's an analogy for an operating system and why should people care? And I think a great analogy is it's like a self-driving car where you just get in the passenger seat and it kind of helps you navigate, makes decisions for you, takes you to your destination, reduces a lot of the friction. And so that's what I'm really excited about. I think more and more choice creates complexity, but doesn't mean that we have to spend all this time trying to navigate that when there's great technology that can do it for us.
Yeah, it's the example in that case of Harry Potter is, it's the outcome is I want to watch that piece of content.
Yes.
I don't care in some ways where it is.
Yeah.
I want to get there and I want to get that fast because that's what success looks like. I think as we talk a lot about for our local advertisers as well as our national advertisers, they want a very specific outcome. And if you can work with a partnership that not only aggregates inventory, but uses the data behind it to really create an integrated solution. We talk about ourselves as an integrator more than an aggregator because it's not enough to get all of that together.
Yes.
You need to be able to do something with it. And I think the combination of our first-party data that we have in a privacy-focused way and the technologies that we have on your end is creating signals and an understanding of consumers and aggregation of inventory that allows us to focus on what is your outcome.
I love that distinction between aggregator, which is you're just taking a bunch of stuff, mushing it together, but not getting any differentiated value, versus an integrator, which is, yes, you do that consolidation, but you're enhancing, you're enriching, there's proprietary things you're bringing to it. And for us, our partnership, it's the data, it's the experience. One of the things that I'm really excited about is taking the scale of Xumo outside the charter audiences and adding that to kind of your overall story so that an advertiser can also get extended reach. And so this is what makes me so excited about our partnership. And I know that collectively we can be that platform of the future to make it easy, not just for consumers, but for advertisers to get the outcomes they want.
Yeah, and I want to talk about reach a little bit because, in our local markets, I think we're about 44% of the share of ad-supported streaming. And the reason why we are that is not just our owned and operated and our 30 million households and our 500 million devices and all those things, but is also outside of that, and it's partnerships that we certainly do with Amazon and things that we do with Paramount and things that we do with DirecTV and with Verizon and so on. But also foundational to that is what we do with Xumo, and I think the things we talked about yesterday was that extended reach and the understanding beyond sort of the foundational Xumo box and solution within Spectrum households. It's the solutions you're providing outside.
Yeah. So, we love the fact that, Spectrum Reach is the most engaged, highest viewed app on Streambox, and that's the way it should be. Collectively, hours viewed on Spectrum Reach is higher than all other apps, third-party apps combined. But to your point, we want to be able to also bring in new audiences across the Xumo ecosystem. So outside the Streambox, we also have our distributed fast channels across other OEMs. And so that's to your point about kind of reducing the complexity. Maybe an advertiser doesn't want to sort of go to each OEM and be able to, segment their buys. We could have them kind of aggregate all of their OEMs in one place with Spectrum, kind of the Streambox as the foundation. Yeah. So I'm really excited for kind of what we could do and how we can take the benefit of the owned and operated and bring it into a larger ecosystem.
When we think about reach, we think about two ways. One of which is what that extension is, and I think there were some numbers that we were talking about yesterday about that. The other is reach in terms of expansion of content and access to things and programming, and part of it is not only the Xumo channels that you have and have been successful along the way, but also through those other OEM relationships. Some exciting things that even though we've worked together for a couple of years, I was surprised yesterday about some of the access to inventory and content that you have.
Yeah, I think it's really important for every platform to have a diversity of content. You're gonna have your, blue chipped Emmy-winning shows, you're gonna have your live sports, but you also need kind of everyday tonnage in terms of the content that's gonna make people come back day after day in engagement. And I think that's one of the benefits of Xumo is we provide a lot of complementary content to the other content that MVPDs distribute and sort of carry. And that gives us the chance to reach new audiences. We've been talking to a lot of sort of more Gen Z focused creators to bring younger audiences into Fast. Yes, we love premium live sports, but there's a ton of niche audiences who love kind of more of the tier 2 sports. I don't know, pickleball.
Yep.
We have a cornhole, channel. Even like soccer, there's a lot of premium sports, but they don't get the play because they're expensive to distribute on traditional channels. What Fast does is it lowers the barrier to entry for everyone to find the content that they want. And so I'm really excited about that variety, that richness that we can give every single kind of type of audience in the market.
You think about pickleball, you think about some of the long tail sports. We were having a conversation internally as well about that, which is someone who is watching a commercial on pickleball, right? Or someone who is watching a lacrosse game of the week in the ACC network. Their passion for that sport is as high or higher than the major sports. And an advertiser to be able to connect in that way is meaningful. The challenge has always been, how do you aggregate that? And I think the combination of the two of us together to bundle those sports grounded in the data that we have, and then aggregating other inventory against that customer because we understand where they go and how they watch and what they watch, creates something really powerful and makes you think about sports in a wholly different way, and ways to sort of create almost a disproportionate value to that consumer by understanding it.
Yeah, and you think about how audiences now are engaging with sports. A lot of people don't actually watch the live broadcast. They're watching clips on social and they, shoulder content that are surrounding the environment. And so I think, Fast can very much be part of that conversation and amplify not just like the main sport, but get people engaged. So we have, NFL channel, NBA channel, NASCAR channel that are giving people great content in the off season to keep those fans engaged. And it's, it may not just be the live shows, but it's creating that fandom, it's creating those audiences, and they're very, very dedicated to some of those content.
I love it. I think as we think about it, there's a question if you're talking to a small business, the owner of a series of pizza or QSR or automotive, or a major head of investment. The idea of, if we can deliver the entire local market, we can give you inventory across any passion point that you want, and we can ground it in data and an understanding of that customer to allow you to affect any outcome. Would that be of interest to you? And I think the exciting thing is, and we keep hearing it, I've heard the last couple of days, is resoundingly yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. It's a great way to wrap up CES.
Yeah, enjoy the rest of the time you have here.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.